Good evening and welcome to the e-commerce for direct farm marketers Twilight webinar and Q&A. This is really an unprecedented time, and we know that you are making important decisions for your farm business every day. We want you to know that UT Extension and the Tennessee Department of Agriculture are here to support you in every way possible, and one of those ways is to try to offer some seminars in the evening to answer some questions you might have along the way. We will try to have everybody's microphone muted except for the speaker and video turned off to make sure folks can get the best possible reception wherever they are. And we have somebody moderating that in case we need some help in doing that. So tonight we will discuss various options and considerations for creating and operating an online store. We will be providing an introduction and overview of some platform options, some considerations for selecting a platform, some items about payment processing. We will then have a tour, so to speak, of an online store using Square. We'll have a discussion of how to promote your new online store, and then some considerations for shipping product and curbside pickup, especially during this time where we are experiencing issues and need to be very careful related to COVID-19. Please feel free to enter any questions that you have in the chat box, and we will check on those periodically throughout the session. I am Megan Brew-Lefew, an Extension Specialist for the Center for Profitable Agriculture. I'm going to moderate the session this evening and provide a little bit of information, but I am very pleased to have several speakers join us who have some experience with e-commerce and online stores. Amy Ladd from Lucky Ladd Farms, Tasha Kennard with the Nashville Farmers Market, Adam Akampora with the Tennessee Farm Wine Growers Alliance, and Casey Troop with the Tennessee Department of Agriculture. So we will be sure to send our contact information out in addition to some additional information from tonight's session in an email in the next day or two, so you can reach out to us if you have questions about what we've talked about tonight. We do want to recognize that information presented in this session is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute legal or medical advice. And we will be discussing different products and services offered for fees and some for free. This is for informational purposes only and does not indicate an endorsement from us. So we have a lot of ground to cover. And so we're going to go ahead and dive into some information on various e-commerce platforms. You will discover if you started digging around a little bit that there are lots of different options for platforms. Some mainstream platforms that'll work for almost any product or service out there, and some that are built specifically to help direct farm marketers. We're going to start by talking about Square, since we know that there are many producers who may use Square already for credit card processing. So if you are a producer who is using Square to process your credit cards, they offer a free online store that you can create to sell an unlimited number of products. So it is free, although their credit card processing fees are the same through the store as they would be for when you're processing them from your own location. There are some features that may be of interest. They have some inventory management features. They have some features that help with curbside pickup. And I have found that for a limited time, they have a feature that they are allowing folks to use for free that would help with routing deliveries. Now, there are additional versions of the Square online store that are paid plans with additional functionality that start at $12 a month. We're very excited to have Amy Ladd, who's going to talk about Square a little bit later on and show us some of the screens that you would see and going through in setting up your store and using this option. There are quite a few other mainstream e-commerce platform options as well. If you have developed a website, some of the website platforms also offer an online store option with that. So for example, if you use WordPress to create your farm website, then they have functionality through authorize.net to make an online store within that website. Wix also has the capability, or you have the capability with Wix to create an online store through that platform as well. Then some others that you might hear about, Shopify and Squarespace are other e-commerce platforms that you can build stores in and then link into your website wherever that is. If most of your consumers are following you on Facebook and really engaged with you on Facebook, Facebook even has the functionality of creating a shop linked in directly with your Facebook page. So already we've talked about and just introduced you to 6 different options for e-commerce platforms. And we haven't even gotten into the ones that are made directly for direct farm marketers. We have found a really nice publication put together by the National Young Farmers Coalition that describes direct sales software platforms for farmers' direct marketing products to consumers. So I'm going to walk you through a few of the pages there. The link is at the bottom, and we will also email the link to this publication to you because they have done a lot of work and it provides a lot of information and presents it in a really nice way. So this page in the publication talks about a checklist of options for each of the platforms that are listed in the green across the top. So it describes by whether it has a check mark or not, if you can build an e-commerce storefront in that platform, if you can work with CSA or subscription management there, whether it will have functionality for multi-farm or food hub features, whether it processes credit card payments or allows an option for consumers to select an offline payment option if you would like for that to be an option as well, whether it accommodates data export to accounting tools such as QuickBooks, or if it includes marketing tools or helps facilitates distribution such as delivery lists or packing lists. So the folks who put this publication together did a whole lot of legwork in helping to figure out what each of these types of softwares can do for you. The publication then gives a little bit more information for each of the platforms that are listed. So for example, the second one there is barn to door, and I have seen several of our Tennessee farms lately have used barn to door, so I'm going to pick on that one a little bit. So it describes this as an online storefront which can be embedded into your website. Subscription CSA sales are possible, and it gives a little bit about what the fees are. So there's a $299 to $499 setup fee, then a monthly fee of $59 to $99 a month, and a credit card processing fee. So you will really want to look at the fees associated with all of these. Some of the more mainstream options may have less fees, but they may not be as good a fit for you. So you kind of need to weigh what you need and what you get when you pay for them. So I just wanted to list on the next few slides, I broke down the e-commerce platforms with various types of operators that we may have on here. So platforms with e-commerce storefronts for farms that are direct marketing to individual consumers. There are 16 options, everything from the barn to door to what's good. And descriptions of these and their functionality are provided in that publication that we mentioned. We can't spend time tonight going through each one of these, but that publication will provide you with some good information there. E-commerce platforms for CSA. There are fewer of these, so if you have a CSA that you're looking to move to some online management, you might consider CSAware, Farmigo, Grown By, Harvest Hand, Harvey, the local food marketplace, or local line. Now, Margarita Volandia from the Department of Agricultural Economics did some informal surveying of some CSAs before we did the CSA Twilight session last week. And interestingly, that all of them that she spoke with that had an online presence were using Harvey. So just a note there in case you're looking for a CSA platform. It would be interesting to know why those have chosen Harvey. E-commerce platforms for farmers markets. This might be a virtual farmers market or a farmers market that's offering pre-orders for pickup at the market. Cropolis, Local Line, Local Orbit, Open Food Network, and online farm markets. I know in talking with Tasha at the Nashville Farmers Market, they had been researching platforms to use for the Nashville Farmers Market, and they were going to be working on a storefront with What's Good. So perhaps that we can hear from her a little bit more about that if anybody has questions. It is very important to take your time when selecting a platform to really understand some of the intricacies of what it takes to get set up and what happens with the data and that customers input and that you have available about your sales in there, as well as data security. So one of the big ones is going to be the fee structure. Is there a setup fee? Is there a monthly fee? Is there a transaction fee? And then what kind of credit card processing or additional payment type fees are involved. So really understanding what it's going to cost you over time and if there's any contracts involved with that as well. How much time it's going to take you to set it up, because it will take some time. And if you have somebody who has some technology skill to do that, how easy is it to update it and change over time? What kind of payment methods are accepted, and what kind of security does the site have to make sure that all of that information is safe? Do they allow credit and debit cards? Is there an offline option for somebody to pay cash or check upon pickup or delivery? Is there an option for EBT, either online, which we've learned isn't an option necessarily in Tennessee at this time, but Tasha may have some ways to work around that. But can you accept EBT for payment at a later time? How long does it take from when the customer pays for an item in your platform for you to receive that money in your bank account? That would be a big one that I would want to know about. Does it happen automatically? Does it happen daily, weekly, monthly? How long does it take? What is the customer interface? What does it look like? How easy is it to use? You certainly don't want to put together an online store that is difficult for your customers to use or isn't attractive to look at. You need to think about what kind of features you need for the platform that you're using. Do you need something that will help you manage inventory? Do you need something that will help you create pack lists or delivery routes or labels for products. Really think about what you need the platform to do for you. If you have items that are sales taxable, is there functionality in the platform to collect and remit sales tax the right way, and the maybe some reports that you need for that? Is IT support available to you? Is there an ability to integrate the data from the platform with your accounting software? And is there an ability to integrate your online store with your existing website if you have one? And then we also want to think about data security and use. So the data that is collected on customers and the data on your sales, you know, who does that belong to? How will they use it? What if you decide to leave the platform and close your online store from there? What happens to that data? So those are a few questions that you'll want to ask as you're selecting a platform type and putting together an online store. Some of these and more considerations came from the article with the link listed below on the screen, and we will again send that to you following the session in the next day or two, so that you have access to look at that article directly. Just a few notes on payment processing. We need to be able to accept payments that our customers are using and making it easy for them. And in this time of dealing with COVID-19, having those the ability to accept prepayments, so we aren't handling those transactions at the farm and in person can be extremely valuable. So of course, options can be credit and debit card processing. Many people have PayPal accounts, and some may choose to use those instead of directly putting their credit or debit card information into your particular online store. Stripe is another, seems to be similar to PayPal and accepting payments that way. Apple Pay for folks with iPhones and Mac products can easily pay using Apple Pay. There are some peer-to-peer transactions. There's Cash App and Venmo for business, where people can transfer funds from their bank account into your bank account. PayPal also has a version like that. There are fees when you do business to business. There's a free option where you can do friend to friend, but it's against their policy to use that friend to friend service for business. So be careful with that. Of course, offline options may be cash or check or EBT. We were hoping that there would be an online EBT option, but I don't think that we have that capability yet here in Tennessee. I am looking for Tasha. Is Tasha on the call? All right, we will go ahead. Tasha was going to talk to us a little bit about accepting EBT and some ways that some of the producers at the Nashville Farmers Market are doing that during this time. And hopefully she will be able to join us a little bit later. If not, we're gonna go on ahead and talk about using Square for e-commerce. And I'm really excited to have Amy Ladd join the call and share some of her experiences that she has had and is having with her online store at Lucky Ladd Farms. Amy, I'll turn the mic over to you.
Thank you, Megan. So I appreciate the opportunity to share my experience with you guys. I don't know that I'm an expert at this, but we have been using it now going into our 4th week. And so I will say it has changed a lot from this week compared to week 1. And I think that's because everybody was trying to go online all at the same time. And so they implemented some updates and made life slightly easier. I am going to talk about the free version of Square. That's what we use at the farm. I have talked with some other farms that are using the retail version or the upgraded version, and there are some definite benefits they see to doing that. But for us, from a cost perspective, we've just always done the free version. I will say that we are paying more for the e-commerce than we are on site. When you utilize Square, a lot of people aren't aware, but rates are negotiable. And so once you have a history with them, you can call in and negotiate for better rates, not just their published rates. However, for the e-commerce, it is my understanding that it is still the published rate. So if you do have a negotiated rate and you're going to go on e-commerce, you are going to pay just a little bit more for the e-commerce site. So Megan, if you'll go to the next slide for me. Okay, so for me, when I initially set up and started using the free integrated e-commerce through Square, I consider myself to be fairly tech savvy, but it took a little bit of maneuvering and poking around. It just wasn't super intuitive as to how the two integrated and worked together, how to get back and forth, and what you exactly do where. But Square is integrated into a Weebly website, and it is, again, free. Initially, you want to create your items in Square, which I would assume most of us have already done. But pretty much everything from that point forward is done in Weebly. And there are some things that you can do on both. Once you have your items created in Square, you can access the Weebly site, and I'll show you on the next slide how you're going to do that. But when you're in Weebly, you have to set up new categories. They're not the same categories that you have set up in Square generally, or at least mine weren't. They were more specific and allowed me, like in my Square site, I might just have like farm market gourmet foods for like my jar goods, and then I might have farm market produce for my produce and things like that. But on the Weebly site, I'm much more specific, so it's produce and meat and dairy and eggs, and it's just more defined to make it more user friendly on the Weebly side. So two different sets of categories, something to keep in mind there. When you're looking to set up your categories in Weebly, you're going to find that under the items drop down tab, and I highlighted that over to the side of the screen for you guys, and that's where you create it. And something else to keep in mind is every time you create a category, that creates a new web page on your site. So just be aware if you're creating something that it's creating a page for that site. And then once you have your categories, you'll go back and you'll assign to each of your items in Weebly those different categories. So I hope that makes sense. One helpful feature that they've added, they didn't initially have, but they added in the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, is you can edit items in Weebly doing bulk edits. And I'll show you an example of this again in a minute, but it's super helpful when you have 10 items that you're trying to add to all the same category. One thing that I discovered very quickly was as I set up my website, I thought everything was great. We rolled it out. I got my first order at like 3:30 in the morning. I thought, oh, this is fabulous. And then I realized that they ordered a chicken tender combo, which is something that we sell out of our concession stand when the farm would be open. And I thought, how in the world did they order a chicken tender combo? Because I knew I didn't add that item to my Weebly site. And so that's where this whole visible, unavailable, and hidden comes into play. Because any item that you actually have in Square on your item library inside Square syncs over into your Weebly website. And you have to determine whether or not those items are going to be visible, unavailable, or hidden. I'm not exactly sure what the difference between unavailable and hidden is. I either make mine visible or unavailable. But all those items that I didn't even add to categories, if somebody was on my Weebly site and they used the search function and they typed in the word chicken, it brought up any of those items that would have been in my Square library, hence the chicken tender combo. So I very quickly had to go back and figure out what was going on. And to me, that was helpful to know that just because you didn't necessarily add it to your Weebly website doesn't mean that your customers can't find it. So make sure you do categorize. Every item is either visible, unavailable, or hidden. It's also nice to do a bulk update when you're trying to assign categories. So if I wanted to go through and select all my different breads that we're making in the bakery, I could just click each of those items and then do a bulk update to assign mass categories. And then the other big one is you want to make sure all of your items generally have the same fulfillment method, because if somebody is purchasing something on your site and the fulfillment method is shipping, but then everything else they're ordering is pickup and delivery, it won't let them process that order together. It would force them to have two separate orders. So sometimes we would see people ordering back to back in the first couple of days that I was doing this, and I couldn't figure out exactly what was going on, but it was because somehow or another the items had gotten categorized differently in terms of their fulfillment method. So that's another really helpful way to do those bulk updates to make sure that everything's on the same page. All right, Megan, if you want to go forward for me. So when I first started, this is looking at Square's, a snapshot of Square's navigation. And I kept thinking, it was very confusing to me on how to get over to the Weebly site and just the general flow of everything. So there's two ways that you can access your Weebly site. One is through each individual item, and one is through the online store. Now, initially, when you are setting up your items, if you were to click on that items tab and you create an item, or you're going to your Square item library, and you open an item, if you were to scroll down to the bottom of the page, these couple of what's on the right hand side of the screen is going to be shown at the bottom of the page. And where it says online settings, go to editor, that's how you would access it through an individual item. When I go through weekly and if I'm updating some inventory or if I add a new item, that's generally how I access it, the online store through Weebly, because it takes a little bit of time for Weebly and Square to sync. And the fastest way to get that new item from Square into Weebly is to access Weebly going this method. If I'm just going to do some general updates to my site, or want to look at my order reports, then I'm going to use that other button that I've highlighted, which is online store. All right, Megan, if you want to go forward for me. This was just highlighting again in Weebly, when you do set up your categories, you can see at the top it does have a disclaimer, and it goes into a little bit more detail about your categories in Weebly are different than your categories in Square. Okay, Megan, you can go forward. So this is what your item looks like in Weebly. It's got a lot of similarities, and a lot of the information does sync through from Square. A couple of differences or things to point out. So one is the first highlighted box on the left, and that's the description box. You can put more of a description in Weebly, and you can have a different description in Weebly than you do on your Square item library description. So if you didn't like what you had in Square, you could change it here on Weebly, and those can be different. The next box is where I highlighted that visible, hidden, or unavailable. And again, you want to make sure if you for your product to show up on your website that it is visible. If you run out of something, or it's we do a weekly special right now with a meal, so once that's over, I make it unavailable. And then directly below that is the fulfillment method, and you can see that I have all of my stuff selected as pickup and delivery. If you're going to get into shipping, then you would obviously select that for that item. But just remember, everything needs to be consistent. Otherwise, if they're trying to add multiple items and they don't all have the same fulfillment method, then the customer is going to have to go through 2 separate transactions. And to me, that's probably a deterrent. I'm surprised that a lot of people would go to that trouble. Over on the right hand side of the screen is if we were actually just scrolling further down on the screen. And so there's a box there where you can add additional information. You can manage your inventory. You can see where it says stock, and I have that highlighted, and I think that's maybe 13 or 18. You can manage your pricing and your inventory in both your Square library or your Weebly library. That is something that syncs back and forth and will update, but it does sometimes take some time. For those of you who are familiar with Squares and use modifiers, it will let you add modifiers here through Weebly, which is nice. So especially if you're trying to do any prepared foods, you can give some custom options to your customers. And then directly below that, you see the categories, and you want to make sure again that you're assigning your items to a category so that when your customer's finding it, they can easily navigate your page to see what they're looking for. At the bottom of the screen, I couldn't capture everything, but there is an option for search engine optimization, and it lets you build some more direct links and use keywords and descriptions. And I'm not going to get into SEO, but down the long road, if this is something you plan to keep for a while, then that might be something that you want to get into so that it improves your organic search results. All right, Megan. Oh, go back. Will you go back once? Okay. The image. So you can put more images on Weebly than you can in your Square library. So in your Square library, it will let you upload 1 image. But in Weebly, you can have multiple images for that item. Where, like you see my piece of pie, I could add more images there. And then also, if I was to have variations of an item, then it would let me add an image for each of those variations. But all of that is done through Weebly, not through Square. Okay, Megan. So this is an example of how to do one of those bulk updates that I mentioned when I was talking about either bulk assigning the category, bulk making either visible or unavailable, and the bulk fulfillment methods. Something to note is until you start clicking multiple items in your library, that little bar, that menu bar, does not appear. So if you don't have anything clicked, it's not going to show up. But once you start clicking more than one item, this menu bar shows up to give you those options. All right, Megan. So just a couple of other things that I've learned along the way. During the if you look over on the left-hand side, that's Weebly's navigation in their dashboard. You can see some of the different options, and the one that's highlighted, or the page we're on right now, is for Weebly checkout. And one of the things that I didn't realize is when you set it up and you publish your page, or if you don't address this beforehand, it defaults on for it to accept Apple Pay and Google Pay. And those aren't things that we wanted to take or deal with, because we just wanted to keep everything nice and clean and streamlined to go through our Square account and process into our bank accounts. So just be aware that those are defaulted on, and if you didn't want to accept those, you need to go toggle those options off. And again, if you want to upgrade, you can integrate PayPal if you're using that there. So at pickup and delivery, this is one of those things that they've continued to update, and there's been a few changes. Even as late as last week, they were tweaking some of this. Square did not plan to offer some of these options. They were working on rolling out delivery and pickup and all of these options, but it wasn't supposed to be for about another, I think, 6 to 8 months. So they've kind of had to rush some of this through. So they're just asking customers to be as patient with them as they can, because they're trying to meet our needs in this changing environment too. But when you click on the pickup and delivery tab, when you click advanced settings, that's where you're going to check your default item fulfillment. So I have mine now defaulted to pickup and delivery, not shipping, because we are not shipping items. It doesn't break in this particular spot, pickup and delivery apart. So later on, below it, you can see, you can toggle on accept pickup orders and accept delivery orders. You can kind of see that over on the right hand side of the screen, where one is toggled on and one is toggled off. And then directly below that, it says edit location. And most people probably would think, well, my location looks correct over here on the right hand side of the screen. My name and address and phone number is correct. But you actually need to click on edit location, because it's asking you a lot of information there, and you can give your customer instructions. So this is where you would toggle on that you're allowing curbside pickups. And this is where you would toggle on if you need to leave special instructions for your customers. So for example, we have special instructions that, tell them what to do or what to expect when they arrive on the property, and to follow the signage, and to please remain in their cars. And it gives them our phone number. And of course, we have signage all on the property too to support the curbside pickup. But all of those things you want to review and go through. And to me, that didn't exactly make sense when it said edit location. To me, it should maybe say something like edit your pickup and delivery options. But okay, go ahead, Megan. So Weebly sales tax setup. This was another lesson learned. I have sales tax set up in Square, and it was turned on for my items. So I would have assumed that synced through to Weebly and it was accepting sales tax. Except after 2 weeks, I realized that sales tax was not turned on, because I actually had to go and turn it on and go through this whole calculation process with it. So make sure that if sales tax does apply to any of your items, then go to this little sales tax tab, and it's going to ask you for your zip code or your county, and you can narrow it down, and then it's going to figure out your county rate, and then it adds the state rate for you. But if you think that you have sales tax turned on in Square, that doesn't mean that it's turned on in Weebly. So you have to manually do that in the second location. All right, Miss Megan. So this is just I'm not going in too deep. I know Megan has some tools for everybody on how to step-by-step set up your website. So I'm just kind of showing everybody, like, this is just a quick snapshot of what the dashboard looks like when you're on your home page. There are lots of different layout options. This part of it is pretty easy to maneuver. The header is where you're going to add all of your categories for that navigation bar. And so again, generally your category is going to be included on your navigation. And a really nice thing is you can categorize something as one thing, but then you could change the word in the navigation. So if I had a word that was too long, like I think the bakery just says bakery, but my actual category had a longer name. It might have been bakery and breads or something like that. I created a page that gave an overview of what to expect and how our curbside service worked. You can add extra sections to your site, and so I've kind of highlighted one below. Each weekend we're doing some little something special. We've done, curbside pickup with the Easter Bunny, curbside pickup with the baby animals, curbside pickup with the ponies and friends. It just gives our customers who are families looking for something they just enjoy. They'll come sit and they just enjoy watching the animals play. They don't get out of their cars. They don't do anything. They roll down the windows. The kids enjoy it. So I added this little section where I can talk about it. And I highlighted down below on the left-hand side where it says add section. And that particular section was a text and a photo. So you can customize it as much as you want. Once you have your site ready, remember to publish it. If you make updates to it, then you need to remember to publish it every time you make a change to the site or the layout of the site itself. All right, Megan. So one of the most disappointing things that I've experienced in general, I've always been a pretty big fan of Square and found their reports to be pretty good for what I needed, extremely helpful for me. But when it comes to the integration with Weebly, it is not a great system, and the reporting in terms of easiness is not great. What I've found for me is the best way for me to review my orders is to do it through Weebly, not through Square. And then I need to do an export. So if over on the left-hand screen, you can see that I've clicked on orders. This is sort of a drop down of some upcoming orders. You can sort it, but it's really a pain to open each one of those orders individually. And usually when you hit the back button or go back to orders, you get some sort of error message. It's just not very user-friendly. So the best thing to do is just take your orders and then export them. And then you're going to need to have some Excel skills. And so I export it. The other thing is it's not a direct export. It has to email you a link to the export. So I would select export. I usually choose a date range that I want my orders, maybe from Saturday until whatever the current day is that I'm running the report. And then it's going to send me an email with a link. I have to open the link to download the Excel spreadsheet. It will also directly download into your QuickBooks if you're needing that kind of integration. Okay, Megan, if you want to go forward. So I kind of mentioned I choose the date range. The report is not instantaneous. And then I got everybody sort of one method of trying to sort your data in terms of what you're looking for. What I've found in most of the other farms that I know of that I've chatted with that are using Square, one of the hardest things to know is what do I need and for this particular date. So what's being picked up when and how many of those things do I need for that date? And there's just not a great way to go about it. So if you have Excel, this is one way you can do it. You can download that report, and then in Excel, you're going to go to data, and I'm not going to go through each one of these steps, but I wanted you guys to have it. This is each individual button and step that you would go through, and you can sort it basically by product name and then by date, and then then you're going to go through and use something called the subtotal feature. And what it does is it takes each of those products, and each time the product name changes, it sums up or tallies up for you the number of those products you needed. So if I was selling, let's say, Honeycrisp apples and Granny Smith apples, it's going to tell me that I needed, 10 orders of Honeycrisp apples and 5 orders of Granny Smith apples. And then it goes, to the next item, and it would sum those up, and I could sort that by my pickup dates. We only do pickups on Friday and Saturday, which has worked better for us. We had initially thought we were going to do a Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, and it was just too much. So just going to the 2 days worked well for us. But once you've done those couple of sorts and subtotals, then you can delete a lot of the unnecessary information unless you're doing, this is not a method you want to do if you're trying to do delivery. This is just if you're trying to sort information by product name. I also mentioned to Megan that I had another farmer share with me an Excel pivot table. I was not familiar with pivot tables and how they work in Excel prior to this, but it was an extremely helpful tool. And I told her that I would share that file along with her. And I don't even know how to explain that over how to use it over this webinar, so I'm not going to attempt to. But if you're familiar with pivot tables and you would like that, then I will provide that resource to Megan, and she can pass that along to you guys. All right, Megan, I think that's it. Oh, just a couple of other thoughts. So if you're trying to use Square for pickup and you have multiple locations, it is a challenge, and there's not a great way to do it. We're lucky in the fact that they're coming to us at the farm. A couple of ways that I've heard people try to work around this and still utilize Square is they're putting either in their item a drop down list, so their item would have different variations. So like if they're wanting to buy, let's just say apples, then their variation might be Franklin Farmers Market, Nolensville Farmers Market, that's how they're using a variation of that item. The other workaround that I've heard people using is modifiers. And so if you're familiar with Square, you can use modifiers for the location, but just keep in mind this has to be done to every single item. So it's a lot of work for your customer, but those are the two workaround options that I'm aware of that are available right now. It would be really nice if Square or Weebly would do an update, and I know many people have requested it, so that at the end during the checkout process they could just select the location they wanted to pick up at, but currently that is not available. So I'm open for questions if anybody has questions.
Thank you, Amy. And yes, please, if anybody has questions, please type those into the chat box and we'll address those as we go along and at the end as well. We do have some links to webinars that were conducted by some extension colleagues in North Carolina and Kentucky that go through the steps in developing a store on Square, and we will provide links to those webinars as well. We just wanted to give you a little bit of a flavor of what you're getting into and what some of these screens might look like as you're going through these platforms to put your store together, to see if that's something that you think you want to do and can do. And then there's some additional resources to help you do that. Next, once you have an online store, it's important to let your customers know that that is available. So Casey Troop from the Tennessee Department of Agriculture Business Development Division is going to join us to talk about promoting your new online store.
All right, thanks, Megan. So I'm going to be talking about Pick Tennessee products as well as a few tips on how to market your new online store. So I'm sure many of you are already familiar with our free marketing platform that we have for Tennessee producers. You can access it three ways, either through our website, picktennesseeproducts.org, or you can download our app. If you already have the app, make sure you go in and get the update. We had an update come out just this week. So make sure you go in there back to the App Store and get the new version of our app if you already have it downloaded on your phone. You can also find Pick Tennessee products through the MyTN app, which also has access to several other state services. And I have pictures of the two app icons there if you were looking for them in the App Store. If you already have your Pick Tennessee products listing and you need to make any updates to it or changes, you can do that by emailing us at picktn@tn.gov, and we will make sure those changes get made for you. And if you can go to the next slide, Megan. So this is an example of one of our Pick Tennessee products listings that I actually just updated this week for Hill Family Farm. Oh, the two things that I wanted to point out on this that would relate to your new online store would be under the contact information, you'll see a link for website. You'll want to make sure that that link is up to date with your correct website. We try really hard to keep these as updated as possible, but with as many listings as we have, we really need y'all to let us know if you have a new URL that needs to be put into that link. So it will take the consumer directly to your website for you. We also can, down at the bottom, you'll see it says additional information. If you're adding an online store, we can add that into your description for you if you'd like, to let people know that you do have an online ordering option there. I would caution against putting too much temporary information in this section because, like I said, we have so many of these listings, it's hard for us to remember to keep going back in and updating all of them. So it would be on you to make sure you contact us and keep this information updated. So I would caution against too much temporary information going in there, maybe some more general. Check out our website for more information if you wanted to add in a section about having an online store. We'll go ahead and go on to the next slide. You might be wondering the benefits of being part of Pick Tennessee Products. So I wanted to share some of our metrics from our website and our social media. And these numbers actually have been updated. I got these last week before the month of April ended. And now we've got some new numbers now that we're into May. So we actually had over 21,000 visitors to our website in the month of April, and over 76,000 total page views. So we are getting a tremendous amount of website traffic with Tennessee consumers looking for local businesses through our site. So it's going to be a great place for people to come and find you. Also on our Pick Tennessee Products Facebook, in April we got 980 new page likes, which totals us over 32,000 page likes. So we have a huge following on Facebook. Our posts in April reached over 156,000 people, and 62,000 people are engaging in our posts. So like I said, we are getting some tremendous traffic and engagement on our social media. So it's a great resource to be a part of so we can get you featured on there. Go ahead and go to the example on the next slide. One of the greatest things I think we're offering our Pick Tennessee Products members right now is our Do Your Part with Pick TN campaign. So each day, we started this back in April, we are highlighting a different Tennessee producer that's a part of our Pick Tennessee Products community, and we are sharing their story through our social media. I know there's a lot of information on that picture there. That's an example of a producer spotlight we did for Amazing Acres Farm. And the most important thing I want you to see is there in that red circle, this one post alone got almost 15,000 views. So just by being part of Pick Tennessee Products and us putting this profile together for them, they were able to reach 15,000 people. And this post was also shared 68 times. So that's another great way to get your information out there. If you have an online store that you are offering, that's something we can put in your description on this post so people know that you're offering that. We were highlighting Amazing Acres drive-through service they are offering, but if you were wanting us to talk about your new online store, we could definitely include that and put a link to it as well. So if you would like us to do a producer profile for you and you're a member of Pick Tennessee Products, we could just reach out to me and we can definitely make that happen for you. So next, I want to give a few simple tips of things you can do to market your new online store. We've had a lot of information being thrown at you already tonight. It may seem a little overwhelming to start this new venture, but once you've spent all that time and effort creating your new online store, you do want to make sure you market it because like Megan said, you want your consumer and your customers to know that you have this option available for them. So I thought of 4 simple and easy things you can do just to get you started in marketing this new store. So you want to make it simple for the customer. You want to link everything where it's easy for them to find. So that means at the top of your website, sharing the link on Facebook and other social media platforms, and sending the link out to your email subscribers if you do email updates. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the next few slides. You also want to optimize your product copy. So you want to do short, product-driven keywords that are also descriptive. So they don't need a lot of information, but they do need to know what it is that they're purchasing. And again, we'll have some examples of these. You'll also want to share product-related photos and videos. So the biggest difference between shopping online versus shopping in person is that you can't see the product that you are purchasing beforehand. So those photos help the consumer understand what it is they're purchasing and have more confidence in that purchase. Also, while sharing photos and videos, it's a great way to share your story and have the customer be more connected to your product. And you can also include that link to your online store when you're sharing those photos on your social media. You'll also want to share complete details and instructions on all of your marketing platforms. That's on your website, your social media, and through your email. Everybody is doing this a little bit differently, so you want your customer to have a full understanding of the process that you are using at your store. So we'll go on to some examples that I have on the next slide. So back to Hill Family Farm, this is a few screenshots of their website that they have. And they gave me permission to use these screenshots. So you'll see the first picture on the top left corner is their home screen. So when you click on Hill Family Farm, that link from their Pick Tennessee products listing, or if you were to Google them and click on their website, that's going to be their home screen. And it's kind of hard to see, but you'll notice a few tabs over, I think it's 1, 2, the 5th tab, it says shop. And that's going to take you directly to where you can purchase their online products. So what I love about this is it's clear, it's easy for you to find. If you think about a newspaper, they have this saying called above the fold. So when you have a newspaper, the most important headline goes at the top on the very front page above that fold line. So when it's laying in the display case, you can see it without even having to pick it up. So we're going to update that to before the scroll. So when someone comes to your website, you want the most important information to be visible before they have to scroll. That way it's right there for them as soon as they open the page. The next photo to the right, if you were to hover your mouse over the word shop on their website, this drop-down menu comes up and it has clear options, whether you want pork or chicken or beef. And you can click on one of those options based on what you're looking for, and it takes you to that photo down at the bottom. They've got clearly noted at the top information about COVID-19, changes they're making, important information that their customer needs to know. They've got great pictures of their products so you know what you're purchasing. They have those short descriptive product names. So you see pork chops, package of 2. Short, but you know exactly what you're getting. They did ask me to not show their prices, so I have covered those up, but where you see each of those black lines, the prices were clearly labeled there as well. So very simple for the consumer, easy for them to follow. Okay, we'll go on to the next slide. The last thing I want to talk about is how to promote your new store on social media. So these are 2 of Hill Family Farm social media posts. And you'll notice in here, one of them, the left photo, is a pinned post that they have pinned to the top of their Facebook page. So it's always the first thing you see when you go to their Facebook. And it talks about their new online ordering process. And I highlighted in this red box the link. And you'll notice it's not just to their homepage, it's the direct link to their store. So in one click, you're directly taken to where you can purchase their products. In the right photo, they did the same thing, but this time they're highlighting a specific product, so they've got that great picture. This is actually a photo that one of their customers took and shared with them, so now they're connecting the customer back to their store, sharing that story just a little bit further. And then again, they included that direct link that takes you directly to their shop page. So it's fewest clicks possible, one click, you're right there and you're ready to shop with them, making it very easy for their customer to follow and to find. So those are just a few simple things you can do to get started in marketing your new store.
Thank you, Casey. We've also had a few questions related to distributing that product through shipping and curbside pickup. So Adam Akampora with the Tennessee Farm Wine Growers Alliance is joining us to talk about considerations for shipping your product.
Hey guys, you can go ahead and jump to the next slide. I'm going to kind of keep this somewhat short and answer more questions if anyone has them as we get to the end. And this was kind of touched on already, but first things first is your frequency. You know, are you looking at doing pickups at your facility every day? Are you looking at doing shipping every day? This is something that you really need to consider from a manpower standpoint, from, you know, an efficiency standpoint, if you're doing 1 order versus 20 orders, getting everything together. So the question you need to ask yourself, you're looking at shipping on demand or doing scheduled shipping. And I think Amy had mentioned that they're doing twice a day, Fridays and Saturdays right now for pickups, which is great, and looking at that as your first consideration. Costs associated with shipping. If you are shipping or doing pickups, and I'm looking at shipping in case you are doing deliveries or shipping through a carrier, a common carrier. But are there minimum order quantities for carts with your ordering, or are you allowing them to just purchase a $5 item and move forward, or do they have to purchase at least $40 worth of product or set up quantity amounts to move forward? Free has got to be something you ask yourself too when you're doing with shipping and delivery fees. And I don't mean absorbing all the costs yourself. You can pass on the cost to the customer in the form of the cost of your product or processing fees if need be. But in the age of Amazon and wanting it now and next day and not paying for it, you have to be aware that while the customer does want local products, that they are thinking about what they're used to getting, and it's amazing how quickly a turn off a $10 shipping fee or a $10 delivery fee may get a customer to turn off your and abandon their shopping cart pretty quickly. Amy, I'm going to touch on your website too, because I was looking through your site and you did a great job with your single items as well as set packages. Just like your CSAs that certain farms are offering right now. Are you doing individualized items? Are you doing set packages? Are you upselling items? Are you offering items that maybe you're not producing on your farm, but you're partnering with a surrounding farm or surrounding business operation to offer as upsells? Maybe it's jam, maybe it's from a local bakery, and it's a pie or a cake that you're able to add on to your existing packaging. But think about going beyond just single items and looking at set packages. Customers, while they do like choice, they also enjoy kind of some of the decisions being taken out and just getting the purchase being easy, so they don't really have to think. So that's why you see such an uptake in all of the food shopping, or like the Blue Aprons and the Hello Freshes. It's because it's taken away the guesswork and the decision making for the customer, and it's presenting them with a set option, and they will make the best of the set option. Something to consider too with the upsales and the set packages, kind of an add-on item that doesn't really cost much more than your time, is developing idea, ingredients, themes, fun dinner ideas that you can include with your food, whether they be in-store pickups or shipping, just to get the customer engaged. Maybe it's a family recipe that you've had in your household for generations, but that's something that starts building a bond to the customer because it becomes part of their tradition then. Megan, next slide. And packaging thoughts, both with pickups and shipping and delivery. First things first, what are you putting all your product in? And I've crossed out styrofoam right off the bat. While styrofoam does keep things insulated and cool and protected from the heat, especially during the summer, there are some environmental concerns with that, and a lot of the consumer base that are purchasing from you probably have some affinity for trying to remain somewhat green. Look at paper and pulp products, no peanuts, packaging peanuts. Look at, if you are shipping, things that are approved by UPS and FedEx in terms of size. Think about cool packs, especially both with produce and especially with proteins. But cool packs, keeping everything good for the summer. Not mentioned on here, there are insulated reusable containers that you can use as well, especially if you're doing reoccurring weekly CSAs or reoccurring customer base. Think about using reusable insulated plastic containers that they can bring back to you the following visit. Or you can either do it for deposit, or if you know they're a reoccurring member of your CSA, just have them bring that back to you when they come back to pick up their next order. Cuts down on, there's a lot of upfront costs, but it'll cut down in the long run. And it also doesn't require you to have as much supplies in terms of packaging for everything going out the door. When to ship, again, this kind of goes back to the first thing, consideration if you're doing on demand or if you're doing set days. If you are shipping product and not just doing pickup, think about if you're processing through UPS and FedEx, how long it's going to take the customer to get their products. You know, they may not do delivery on Sundays or Saturdays, depending on how you ship. So if you ship stuff out on a Thursday, your customer may not see it, and that product may sit in the warehouse for an extra 3-4 days before it actually gets to your customer. So be cognizant of when you're shipping and what the anticipated arrival time is for the area you're shipping to. Gift wrapping, and this is a nice little add-on, especially when you have holidays like Mother's Day. If you do have farm products, jams, you know, pre-baked goods, things like that you're offering, can you add on some decorative boxes or packaging for certain items as kind of an upsell or a complimentary aspect, or even adding a note into the box if they're sending it to a friend. Given the current circumstances, there are lots of people that are sending food to families and loved ones that may not be able to get out and may not be as tech savvy. So they may be sending a care package to a relative. And so offering a gift wrapping or a little note to be included in your packaging is a nice little add-on. Kind of kept this short and sweet. Any questions on packaging or considerations?
Yes, please. At any time you have a question, put those in the chat box. I'm going to follow on just something that Adam said. And while normally that we would think about, you know, reusing packaging, especially for CSAs and things, this year our specialists recommend not doing that. Because of COVID-19, we don't want customers bringing packaging back to the farm that could infect you or your employees, and where you would have to clean and sanitize and disinfect them, the containers. So this year, you don't want anything coming back to your farm. You find something that you can send home with them, and they keep it and reuse it or recycle it in some way. I know the UT folks who run a CSA, we're going to use some brown paper recyclable bags to send the products home in this year. Just because of COVID-19, we don't want to bring anything back to the farm that could cause illness in you or your employees. We have had some questions related to shipping of meat products, and this gets a little bit more complicated because we've got to keep product hard frozen or cold. And Rob Holland, Nathan Miller, Mark Morgan have put together a fact sheet specifically on considerations for shipping meat products sold directly from the farm. We're not going to cover this tonight because there's a link to the fact sheet, and we'll send you that link in the email in the next couple days as well. Unless there's any specific questions about it tonight, which we can certainly try to address. Just a few thoughts on curbside pickup. Lots of folks are doing this, which is great to reduce transmission and contact with folks. If you can schedule pickups, that can be extremely helpful so everybody isn't showing up at the same time. Try to accept online prepayment when possible. If not, if you are accepting payment at the farm, try to have a dedicated employee to handle those payment transactions so you don't have somebody taking money or handling credit cards and then handling the product at the same time. So we want to try to reduce any risk of contamination there, having one person handle the payment, another employee handling the product, and ideally that employee would not touch the vehicle. So the employee handling the product would not open the door. Hopefully the customer can pop the trunk or the back gate of their vehicle. An employee can put the product in and they can either shut that gate again with a button, the customer can, or another employee can shut the vehicle. So we don't want to touch those vehicles if you're handling product. Employees should wear masks and gloves, but make sure that we're training and reminding folks to wash their hands correctly and as often as needed, and how to properly use masks and gloves, because if you aren't using those properly, it's probably worse than not using them. So just a few considerations for curbside pickup. I did want to mention there's another resource that I looked at and used some information from that has more tips than we've covered tonight from the Center for Rural Engagement out of Kansas, an article on touchless transactions, e-commerce guidance for rural business managers considering online sales. The link is here, but we'll also send you the link so you have this resource as well. We know that this is a difficult time. We know there are lots of decisions you are making and a lot of information out there. We hope this session has at least provided you some things to think about, and will provide you with some resources to utilize as you continue to consider an online store and perhaps develop one for your business, as well as other issues related to your direct farm marketing enterprises during this time when we're dealing with this virus. We want you all to be safe and healthy, and we want to keep your customers safe and healthy as well. We also want to try to market our products to keep your farm sustainable and to help fulfill the needs of consumers who are looking for local products out there. We will watch the chat box here for anybody has questions. And if we don't have questions, I will open the floor to our speakers again. Adam, Amy, Casey, any final points while we're watching the chat box? We certainly appreciate you all taking time to be with us tonight. We know it's late, but we know also on these beautiful days that you are outside working until there's no daylight left. So we appreciate you joining us this late. We will make the recording of this session available and provide some links to additional resources in the next couple days. We'll email those to you. They'll also be available on the Center for Profitable Agriculture COVID-19 page. Before we go, we do have a question. Christy is curious to know how long the initial setup took for Amy when you were setting up your store.
Yeah, so that's a great question. We got the idea or decided on a Friday that we were going to move forward with this and go ahead and open our market up. And then we launched the following Wednesday. I would say that I had worked on my website. I know I worked on it a Sunday, a Monday, and a Tuesday. But there were also a lot of items that we added that we sourced from other suppliers and other farms and things like that that I didn't normally carry online. So that took a little bit longer to add all of those items and get that up and going. Had I not had all of those items and we weren't trying to review pricing and negotiate deals and stuff like that, I probably could have had it up and going within about a day and a half. So it took me a little bit longer on that end. I will also say that I feel like that there were a lot of hiccups and things like that. Initially, there was a big issue with Weebly. It kept basically going down. And again, I think that was just related to everybody was trying to get up and going that at that same time. Because I knew lots of other producers and farms that were also working on theirs at the time, and we were all experiencing the same issues. I think Weebly was having to move to bigger servers and things like that, so that added a little bit more time because I was couldn't go in and do it all straight through, if that makes sense. But I would allow yourself probably at least two good, full days. And then, a little bit longer if you're adding new stuff or if you're not familiar with Square.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you all for joining us. Please feel free to send questions anytime. You'll have my email address maybe most readily. I don't know all the answers, but I do know a lot of smart people, so I can certainly route questions to other folks and try to get you answers. We appreciate all of our speakers, Amy, Adam, Casey, for being here and sharing your knowledge and experience. And we appreciate all of you who took time to join us tonight. Stay well.